my own thinking and feeling and perspectives, and I'm so grateful to everybody who has so generously shared their words and art with us. We have two of our other editors here. Do you want to introduce yourselves, Laura Gray and then Irene?
Hi, I'm Laura Gray Street, and it is truly a joy to see you all here and to be celebrating this issue, which every time I read it, I am in love with more and more. It was the beauty of all the perspectives on the rivers out there continues to amaze me. And it was working with Teresa and Lucian and Irene, what a dream team. That was fantastic. And so thank you all who are here and everybody out there who's in the issue for the amazing work and the beautiful collective that has come together with your words and your images and your interviews and everything. And I will pass it on to Irene.
Hi, everyone. I'm Irene Vasquez. I'm calling in from a couple blocks from the banks of the East River. Started working on this issue closer to the Hudson. I moved across the Hudson into Jersey, and now just a few blocks from the East River. To echo everything that's been said, I had such a joyous time working on this issue. And getting to know all your rivers through your beautiful works of art.
Thank you. That's so true. And I realized I'm not even sure I said I'm Teresa Seglowitz. I was also one of the editors. And I'm here from Chicago and my complicated Chicago River. All right, so I also want to introduce Michael McDermott, who is the founder of Black Earth Institute. Woo! Which is the organization which sponsors About Place. And in fact, today is Michael's birthday. So I was hoping we could all unmute quickly and do happy birthday for Michael, who has given so much to the journal and the organization and to so many writers and artists and thinkers. Happy
birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Michael. Happy birthday to you. And many more.
That's why we're poets and not singers.
We did not rehearse ahead of time, believe it or not. Michael, we are so grateful to you and so grateful to you for sharing your birthday with us for this reading. So Michael is going to go ahead and share a little bit about the journal, about Black Earth.
Well, Black Earth came to me and Patricia Monahan in 2004 when we thought Bush's second election was like near the end. And we thought we should do something about it. And I'd been studying the influence of think tanks on getting messages out and, changing opinions and creating movements and all. And Patricia knew all your type. And we decided we should do something about it. And we started the Black Earth Institute. And from that, we decided that we would start a journal. And the idea there was to really build a community of artists, speaking to the issues that the editors chose, the fellows. It was a rough start. Actually, if you go back to look at the ratio between submissions and what was published, I think you guys had a little less than 900, I think, submissions for 75 or 80. And in the beginning, it was very rough. And people persevered in the journal. And I think it's gotten much. I mean, it's become, I think, an influential part of a certain kind of expression and a certain kind of people. And I think that's the goal. And from that, a message has gone out ever further. And I'm just humbled by the hard work, the connections that are made. And I just, show respect and hope for the people here. The journal is, I mean, I don't make many decisions on this, but what I do is I'm sort of the guideline police, so I scan the things, I look at them, and even allowing for, outrageous obsequiousness. What people say nice things about the journal, I have to believe some of anyway. And I just think that's all due to you guys and to the vision that we had and to the incredible hard work of the editors and any assistant editors. So mainly what I can say is thank you and keep on keeping on.
Thank you, Michael. And I just want to also quickly introduce our other co-host or our other co-editor, Lucian Darjun Meadows, who has just joined us as well. Lucian, I don't know if you want to say hello or say anything.
Thank you. It is such a pleasure to be here and such a joy to have been working on this issue with you all. I come to you all as an uninvited guest here on the homelands of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute peoples. And just thank you to my co-editors, Irene, Teresa, Laura Gray, and thank you to you contributors. I'm so excited to hear from you tonight.
Thank you, Lucian. And then with no further ado, we'll get started with the reading. I am just so excited to hear from you all. And so first we will have Vivian Faith Prescott.
Goody, I get to go first. My name is Vivian. I'm reading poetry, sharing it from Tlingit Ani, home of the Shtakin Kwan in Kachkanaak, which is the name, the Tlingit name of the island I live on. I live near the Red Alder Head village, which is Keshungitaan. And I'm going to read a couple of poems, well, both poems that were in the issue, but I'm going to just tell you a little bit about a yoik is, because it's in the title, and these are about yoiks, is a Sami chant song, usually without words, but there are also written with few words. And you don't yoik for someone or something. When you yoik, it is that thing or that person. So I will read you How to Yoik the Stikine River. Remove your shoes at the edge of our island. Close your eyes and fly your mind north to the headwaters, Mount Umbach, 6,000 feet above sea level, to a chain of small lakes. Tilt your head back and let the first sounds take a meandering course. Trust this process, said your yoik teacher. Turn your mind west, then northwest, flow south along the Three Sisters Range, across highway, enter a deep canyon, cut through plateaus, and swiftly fall into a narrow channel. Squeeze yourself between walls of volcanic rock. Flow north past stratovolcanoes and downstream to Telegraph Creek. Carry a riverboat in your mind filled with tourists and locals. Float an old cottonwood log down past Cousin's Bluebird Float House and a rickety moose camp. Meander past kids in their orange life jackets, swimming off the dock at Twin Lakes. Flow fly past the hot tub over 2 nude bathers and past the desert with the picnickers eating smoked salmon sandwiches on the sand. Drift near the cabins on Farm Island. Flow through the memories of grandfather homesteading, my mother and her first home as a toddler, watching moose eat the garden's carrots and watching stars streaking overhead across another river of sky. Catch a glint of salmon, hear the sea lions bellow, Surge home past the airport lights, past the old derelict boats rotting on the beach, past the harbors and the line of highway to touch the rocky island shore. There, cold kiss the current across your toes, suck up the notes into your legs, reach belly and breath, draw the river in, fill up with a sandbar, spin in a whirlpool, open your mouth and make a sound like gravel, scrape like a cottonwood tree sloughing off the riverbank into the slough, sound like silt and grit, become the Stockheen. So that's myself imagining I am flying over the Stickeen River and then yoiking it. And this poem is at a nearby glacier, because there is the Shakes Glacier up the Stickeen River. I heard a yoik for a child. And this is for my yoik teachers, Ellen Coven and Yungel Sloney. And it's a quote of Dvodna is a very simple yoik that the child can easily recognize. I was born from a river of ice with ancestors clutching hands nearby. I was born with eyes splashed with the witness of distant stars. Born as morning slipped from night into the neighborhood, as the doe leaped through the still silhouette of the barn tree and ran down the dirt road. Born to conjure glaciers into a traditional song with sound drawn on coastlines. And here I am, new from mask of night, somewhere between sunset and gray light, where I burrowed out from beneath the dreams my ancestor women have chanted up, to inhabit this present shape, to inhabit this rain-drenched day, intoned with silt-laden words, like wind over grass flats. Thank you. And now I'm going to introduce the next reader or artist. So, yeah, Stephanie Height is next. The extraordinary Stephanie Height.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Vivian. And I love that line between sunset and gray light. And I am here on Anishinaabe land in what's colonially called Ypsilanti, Michigan, and we are at the beginning of a thunderstorm. So just feeling those energies. Really delighted to be here with everyone, and thank you to Teresa, Laura Gray, Irene, Lucian, and of course, Michael, whose birthday it is today, so celebrating that, and everyone who works on About Place Journal. All right, let's see, we've got, yes, we're getting to the image that I'm going to share. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Riparian Haunts, which is was used as I was really honored to have that used as the cover art for this On Rivers issue. And this is a piece that I made. I was actually at an artist residency at Searles Place, which is in Garden City, Idaho. And so I was along the Boise River, and I was working on poetry and writing, and part of my practice while I was there for that month was to take a daily walk along the Boise River. And I've also been experimenting with cyanotype printing, which is using a very old photographic process using light and exposure to light. And the whole time I was there, I just had very few hours of light. So I felt that push in the creative process of a specific time to be able to work on this. So just to describe the piece that you're looking at, this is a cyanotype print. In actuality, it's 20 inches by 8 inches. It's 2 panels. And I made it with cyanotype printing, but also using turmeric, vinegar, salt, and the sun. That specific day, just after after the spring equinox in March there. And so for access, an image description is a stretch of different intensities and textures of blue on white, with islets of salt migration, vinegar dissolution, luminous yellow patches. So with my practice of walking along the river, this cyanotype was done with a wet process, whereas it's exposed for over an hour. So I was lucky to have that hour of sun, but I also played with finding just branches and things that had fallen, because I didn't want to cut or disturb any of those natural beings. So I also worked with, some of the riparian plants that I found along the way. And this has actually been the start for me of a poetry series where I'm engaging with these walks and being along the river here with the Huron in my landscape of Michigan. So yes, so thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to just wading more in the river of this lovely evening and offering. So I hope everyone enjoys, and thank you. And I have the pleasure of introducing now, just in the other room for me, Petra Kuppers, who actually was with me at this artist residency, and she's going to read a piece that also engages with some of the waters in that landscape.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Stephanie. And yes, I remember I remember very well when she made these pictures, which is also part of Stephanie's community practice. So she's led quite a few of us in these gorgeous cyanotypes. So I'm really glad to see this so beautifully honored in the issue. And thank you to all the editors for selecting one of my poems. So I am Petra Kuppers, she, her. I am also on Anishinaabe territory in Ypsilanti, Michigan. And I'm going to read to you the poem that is in the issue. It's called Whispers and the Queer and the Stars. And we're not really giving image descriptions here, like individual image descriptions, but I'm someone who looks relatively queer in public, which is great, and I love it. But it is in certain areas that can be an issue, right? Looking visibly queer in certain rural areas and urban areas is a thing. So this poem is based on looking queer, behaving queer with my wife in a hot springs. So that's kind of the origin of this poem, which otherwise is a poem of drifting. This gorgeous practice that so many of us are embracing, drifting through space. Whispers and the queer and the stars at Snively Hot Springs on the Owyhee River in Oregon. Morse code in the sky, bird braille, feel the air, feel the water. Sulfur stinks only from afar. Eyelid hills soothe me. Golden sunshine dazzles the bathers. Your silhouette reflected in the stream, steam rises in clouds, lens-shaped drifts in the starship world. Mars surface, red stink, skunk sneaks over the silver surface. Anti-Semitic jokes taint the river. You and I, my love, my wife, love, we are not altogether safe here. They whisper around us. Why is my hair so short? No cancer, no, the queer loft of water vapor rising, the air, the water, the natural, the herb medicine, pot slinks to my nostril, twitches like a black and white beauty behind the rock. Whispers and the queer and the stars, one and another high up in the sky behind bold sun, dark sun cloud, lost baby bull brays in the road. Thank you so much. Thank you. And I am happy to introduce Minna Jain.
Hello, everybody. Oh gosh, I'm so honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Minna Jan. I use they, them pronouns, and I am an uninvited guest living in so-called Minneapolis, Minnesota, at the confluence of the Mississippi and Minnesota rivers. So the piece I'm reading a portion of, an essay that was published in this issue, and for a little bit of context, it was written in the aftermath of the uprisings that followed the murder of George Floyd. A river is a long soul. 3rd Precinct, South Minneapolis, May 28th, 2020. We walk past the State Patrol and National Guard. They're all knee pads and machine guns. No barrier lines today, just little knots of them watching. It's the end of May. I hop over twisted metal and smoking concrete down the center of East Lake, where the sidewalks are inaccessible, and slog through ankle-deep banks of water gathering from geysers, pouring through high holes in tipping apartment buildings. Downed power lines spark too close to the pools, and a new river of fire mitigation and sewage is forming over the memory of old tributaries. We would escape the city to the headwaters of north central Minnesota in May when I was a kid, camp in shadows between old growth white pines and tall white spruce along LaSalle Creek and Lake Itasca. Coarse snags and furred logs crowded like ruins as stone black glacial waters rushed up and fell south. Did the waters know they'd swell and meet into the Mississippi? Did they know what they'd witness along the way? It's over 80 degrees out, but it's hard to tell where the heat's coming from, the sun or the steaming streets. Looks like our drugstore and grocery store and post office and liquor store and bank and library and gas station and pawn shop are closed up or just gone. Some buildings still stand, but only the outlines of them, like a kid's line drawing of a city in brown and gray. There's light shining through where there shouldn't be light. Shadows folded up where there should not be shadows. The shapes of the city are not quite what they were. Already, it feels like 1,000 years have passed since people lived here, but we live here. The plywood covering the windows of buildings left standing has spray painted messages like, "Elderly family inside, please don't burn." Folding tables are blooming like chanterelles in patches of shade, offering bandages, coffee, masks, boxes of cereal. People push the charred building guts into piles with kitchen brooms and tape cardboard signs to kitchen chairs in the intersections, warning of unstable walls and crumbling earth. Old men fold into folding chairs with smoking red eyes, watching. A few blocks east, the river runs dark with gutter ash and burnt roofing tar and charred insulation. I walk to the Target at East Lake and Minnehaha. Glass doors shattered, their frames torn off. Inside, there's a carpet of debris in a wide, wide spaciousness, like a bomb exploded. I feel the heat in my chest and hope that everyone who needed diapers and a pretty dress, baby Tylenol and bottled water just went right in there and took it. I start forward, drawn toward that maw and its glass shard teeth into the belly of it all, when my phone hums, a text. "This is where you live? Is this where I live?" She won't say protests, she says riots. She says, if they had been on their best behavior, people would have listened to them. If I had been on my best behavior. I stop in front of the charred box of the 3rd Precinct Police Station. Breathe deep. I remember reading once that a river diverted, its flow redrawn by civil engineering, will begin to unearth what's buried along its new path. Thank you. I have the great pleasure of introducing next Ellen Stone.
Sorry about that. Hi, everyone. I'm so grateful to be published in this river edition of About Place with these wonderful writers and artists. I grew up on Spring Hill, a village above the north branch of the Susquehanna River in Bradford County, Pennsylvania. The river was a central figure in my childhood and flowed next to the town of Wyalusing, where I went to high school. Growing up, I did not know that the Susquehanna was the longest river on the East Coast and one of the oldest rivers in the world. I did know that the river felt almost human to me. When I go home now, I see its majesty in ways I could not as a child. Then it was the central pathway that took us anywhere out of our river town. The major roads ran alongside it, and it followed us like a parent. Last summer, there was a toxic spill on the Huron River near us here in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I mourned for this smaller river I walk along where so many people kayak, canoe, and tube in the summer months. I began to think that I can chart my life by the rivers I've lived near, the rivers that have helped me grow, the rivers that I love. This is River Prayer, and it begins the way Vivi Francis's Another Antipastoral begins, and it's for the Huron River. River Prayer. I want to put down what the river has awakened. Hill girl, rock sliding down the mountain, floating a waterway that has always been inside me, passage slick and hidden. How could I ignore this slipping, the ease of it? Blood pulse, just as underestimated. Look, a heron is carving herself into foreground. Pause before fierceness. We are just as prehistoric. See what I have forgotten? Body as oar, a boat's pathway, coursing. There is a way beyond us. Water's edge, an invitation. I have river too much in my core, its plunge and sweep like a sob ready to burst. Here, Joe Pye Reed's pink fists, curly eelgrass sunk and spiraled. My heart, tuber of duck potato in the silted mud, pickerel weed, spiked arrow, cattail driven deep in my marrow. There, a solitary trumpeter drifts, separated, but eventually gathering into cloud bank, dusk coming on. Thank you. And I get to introduce a fellow Pennsylvania artist, Catherine Young.
I'm Catherine Young, and I'm in Southwest Wisconsin in the Driftless area on the traditional land of the Ho-Chunk and Meskwaki. I can say something about Water Tree Heart, and I wonder if we will listen to it.
I have the recording ready to go for you. Catherine, would you like to introduce it first and then play, or vice versa?
Maybe I will introduce it first and then we'll play it. Thank you. So part of the text of Water Tree Heart says, I have a tree inside of me, river, river flowing. And my thinking about it is this: on Earth, we're connected to one another and everything on the planet because we are water. And river is just one expression of water. Rivers etch dendritic patterns, tree shapes on land. The tree shape is the most efficient transport in fluid dynamics, and it's found in human and more than human circulatory systems. So the heart and the mind are shaped as tree and river. Our anatomies sing of water. The vessels moving these, my fluid thoughts and imagination, are rooted in river on this aqueous earth. And Water Tree Heart is part of a larger series of writings and musical compositions.
Okay, everyone, I'm going to play it. Please give me some nods if you can hear this.
Thank you for listening. And thank you for this reading. This is really delightful to be together. I would like to welcome and introduce essayist Alexia Titches.
Thank you. And although I might not be a fellow Pennsylvanian, I'm a neighbor in Maryland. And this is, my essay is based off of my childhood living on a farm out in Maryland and my relationship with my yaya. And first, I was never really close to Cantaloupe, being acquaintances at best. But I did know Peponi, a sweet friend that always came by after lunch. She told me how she felt based off her smells and the music she made when I tapped her. We watched the yellow birds come eat at her feeders and old soap operas on her TV. Cantaloupe's house was too sterile and unsoiled for a child, whereas Peponi's home smelled of butter and flowers, clean but yearning for action and mistakes. It was plush and old, copper kettles and Persian carpets. Never knew how to put this relationship into words. I still don't. Yet I loved Peponi and she loved me. I didn't want to hurt her, but I trusted Yaya. Everything was all right. I bit down into the fruit, ripping through its ripe flesh. I become a wild animal, devouring the prey it has just caught. Antelope, cantaloupe, lion, little girl. I forget about the dinner table rules my parents implement, the remnants of cotillion they carry with them. Elbows off the table, don't speak with your mouth full. Forks on the left side of the plate, knives on the right. Instead, there is just me and a melon. Simple. We gorge ourselves, becoming sticky with spring. I laugh, and juice falls from my mouth, soiling my shirt. I'm sure Mom yelled at me for getting dirty, but I don't remember that part of the story. It was okay to be dirty with Yaya. This was the deserved feast after our quest, a necessary part of gathering our precious greens. After our cantaloupe quarters are gutted and scraped to the rind, Yaya takes my half and leads me to the creek. The small vein of water has always been a mystical fountain to me, hiding crayfish and guppies in its smooth crevices, the lime green moss that comes alive when the snow melts and the water rises, the inversion of those banks when the inversion of the banks from erosion when it lowers. The creek is always breathing, changing, alive. We sit in an opening of grass, our legs dangling to the water, our shoes getting wet. We don't care. Yaya gently places the melon halves in the water, her hands on both of them to keep them from floating away. Kita inakaravi, she explains. What? I ask, instead of pretending to understand out of shame. I'm 6 after all. Peponi boats, she tells me in a mix of Greek and English. I like the name, and I shuffle closer to watch her hands on our dear boats. Tria, she starts, setting the boats equally behind a starting line. Vio, I can't possibly wait any longer. I watch the current ripple off the rinds. Neither can they. Anna, she lifts her hands and the boats stall for a second, getting used to life in the creek without Yaya's fingers. Then they catch the current and they're off, bumping against rocks, bobbing with the changing rhythm of the water. We watch and cheer, not caring about whose half is whose, only that they are Peponi boats and they are ours. We laugh and clap as one of them bumbles around the curve of the creek, disappearing from our view. The other follows. Then we thank the Peponi boats for a nice snack and a good race. They belong to the water now. And now I have the pleasure to introduce Shahira Salvatierra, apologies. Thank you so much for everyone involved.
Hi, thank you. Yahaira Salvatierra. I am going to be reading some translations by a Peruvian poet, Ana Varela Tofer. She is from Iquitos, from the Amazon, a wonderful book where she writes about what is happening there in her home. The first poem is Sometimes the Rivers. In times when the rivers overflow, the fish leave into dark and meek depths. They leave us with protected territories without saying goodbye. We see nothing but bubbles and drawn out floods. My house is surrounded by water once again, and the windows save themselves by looking up to the sky. The rivers are not kind nor cautious sometimes. My grandmother believes there are spirits in the water that distract children who do not sleep. Sometimes the rivers are like that, she says. And she burns tobacco to smudge the corners of rooms and frighten away bad omens that want to govern the world. The next poem is a poem that actually will be published in Plume magazine. Wooden bodies. By the banks or the center of a river, wooden bodies travel toward the sawmills. From a port, I contemplate their drenched backs. Have you seen submerged logs passing through the city? They look like napping alligators or scattered islands led by boatmen. When these pieces of wood arrive to their destination, they remind us of their conflict of use. Men cut down trees and manufacture lies about what we need: municipal seats, nightstands, altars, picture frames, dressers, tourist souvenirs. They were more than sawed pieces, these timbered bodies. They were birds' havens, these thousands of years old chihuahuacos. Now laminated and organized, they're the last links of an extractive chain. Thank you. And the next person I will be introducing is Ann Fisher-Worth with an interview.
Yeah, hi, everybody. So I live in Mississippi, and this is part of an interview that I did with this amazing guy named John Ruskey, who runs the Quapaw Canoe Company out on the Mississippi River. So I'm just going to read you some excerpts. My husband and I went over there one rainy day last spring and talked to him for a while. John Ruskey, for the benefit and health of our queen. He grew up in the Rockies. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him first. He grew up in the Rockies. After high school, he and a friend of his decided to raft the length of the Mississippi River, but the river threw them up on an island, Cat Island, just south of Memphis, where they were in danger of perishing. Luckily, they escaped. John traveled around for a long time and eventually ended up back in Clarksdale, where in 1998, he founded the Quapaw Canoe Company. And I wish that we could have photographs because he's this amazing guy with this long white hair and this hat with a feather and stuff. You know, he's really a trip. So I'm going to quote him. He says, "We build canoes, cypress strip canoes and dugout canoes from cottonwood and from Louisiana bald cypress. And we paddle them on the big river in search of wild experiences in one of the most important ecosystems in North America. Our whole purpose in the company is to provide intimate experiences with nature. We take groups out, sometimes for just a few hours, sometimes for as long as a week. And they do a lot of stuff with the community. They have a summer camp for kids. They run internships where they teach kids to build canoes, and it's pretty amazing. So I just want to give you a taste of his voice and his beliefs, because he was really fun to listen to. He says, "Above St. Louis, the Mississippi has 27 locks and dams, but below St. Louis is free-flowing, wild and free, which is the way most river people like it. Not being transported over a river, lock, and dam, not paddling across big, flat expanses of water held back by those locks. The river is overpopulated with powerboats above St. Louis, but down here it's a totally different river. It's wild and rambunctious and chaotic and turbulent and full of unknowns and extremes and incredible flourishes of nature at her best, always changing and unfathomable." So we asked what wildlife you find. He says, "The Mississippi is a long landscape as defined by E.O. Wilson. He described the long landscapes as those critical long distance connections like Appalachia or the Rocky Mountains, those long geographic features where animals travel long distances. And the Mississippi provides this for birds and fish and other layers of creation. It's the flyway for 44% of migrating waterfowl. Bald eagles are making a comeback, is the densest population of white-tailed deer in North America, bobcats, beavers, wild pigs, and carp. You know, he says everybody's blaming the world's problems on invasive species like wild pigs and carp. But of course, the Homo sapiens are the problem. And he says we frequently see bears and bear tracks on our wild stretch of river. It's the richest habitat for black bear in the middle of the country. I asked him about levees because levees are really controversial, as you know. He says, well, the levee is an existential line that we cross every time we go out on the river. There's life on the river side of the levee, and then there's life on the other side, and it's like day and night. Nature has found a balance between that big, powerful river and the big island's big forests and the creation that lives there. And on the other side of the levee, the dry side of the levee where industrial scale farming prevails, unreality begins. We have twisted and tortured and maneuvered and manipulated, and we seem to be intent on destroying everything. I've traveled all over North America and other parts of the world, but I found closer spiritual and emotional interaction with what is the true feeling of wilderness here over the levee on this big river, this big wild river, than I found anywhere else. It's a whole different feeling to be on the edge of something so big and inscrutable. On the Mississippi, everything is mysterious. We know more about the dark side of the moon than, for instance, the bottom of the river in this mysterious landscape. We are blessed right here in this part of the country with this totally wild environment. We seek to rebalance the imbalance of humanity. The big muddy river and her floodplain create an ideal environment for reconnection to Mother Earth. We're like beavers. We go where the water goes. In fact, he says, we love beavers because they create wetlands. They look after their young and make the world better. They are peaceful, sociable creatures, but we also think of ourselves as worker bees, and the river is our queen. We do whatever we can do for the benefit and health of our queen. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Lynn Pattison.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you, everyone who put this event together and brought our poems together. I have 2 poems to read. They're prose poems. The first is a small one. It's called Apparently It Happens More Times Than You'd Think. My unremarkable aunt transformed to water after she'd refused to cry for 40 years. The pressure built, overflowed where she thought to dam it in, and oozed around a berm or bank to find its course. We watched her give in until giving became flow, then current, a will to go where she wants. We call her a river, and we serve her, for water is strong. Water can call other water, can weather fire and storm. We fear she'll run to the shore, we'll lose her to the oceans. Oh, the storms then, the rising waters, daughters of confinement and rage. And here's another, this is the one from the collection called When Even the North Gets Too Hot. We move into the water. Most understand there is no point in bringing anything. The others learn quickly, belongings floating away, dissolving, seizing up, or bogging them down. Simple needs rule. We share the work. Some gather kelp, crustaceans, duckweed. Others, the most tolerant of heat, go out to harvest succulents that have taken over the land, dragon fruit and barrel cactus, low-growing sedum and prickly pear, and aloe. Most of us need it as our skin softens and peels in the underwater world. We take readily to birthing in the shallows. But swimming is slow business. We miss our cars and motorcycles. The inventive among us explore the adaptation of boats for towing us across the harbor. The young form spontaneous schools and travel through the river or lake in groups. We don't know how to educate them for this life. Math, surely, but reading? As we learn the topography of our new world, we'll teach them to make maps in their heads. Athletes among us compete in river rapids or test themselves against undertow and riptide. We begin to learn the ancient language of the sturgeon, the whispers of minnows, the tail whip and body smack alarms of trout. Teenagers watching the mating dances of turtles take to fluttering their fingertips around the face of the beloved, chin rubbing, face stroking. The ones being wooed learn from the turtles as well and master clear ways to say no. We are often content. We study the moon. We think about praying to her, thankful for cool nights. We could ask for change, make promises. Thank you. And it's my pleasure to welcome Robin Schaffler.
Hi, everybody. My name is Robin, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm coming to you this evening from the banks of the river we currently call the Columbia. I am an uninvited guest, and the Columbia has many, many other names because people have lived along its shores for forever and ever. I'm near the former Celilo Falls, which was drowned when I was a child. But my piece that I'm going to read takes place on a very different river, one of the tributaries of the Columbia. It's called Moving Water. In times of pain, a friend told me, go to moving water. So we go. I stand beside my father. We are both bundled against the winter cold. We watch the black and silver river flow past. Below us, a few boats rocking in their moorings. We are not far, perhaps only a quarter mile, from the place where he and my uncles launched the sailboat, a 22-foot New Haven Sharpie that they built with their own hands when they were young men and could do anything. My father's in his wheelchair, staring out over the river. I'm not sure he knows where he is, on this river where he launched so many boats, taught so many young people to sail, to love the water and the wind. I share with him a quiet time of rare peace. It wasn't a sailing river, too narrow, winds shifty and uncertain, no space for a long reach, no whiff of salt on the air. An urban river lined with city. But a sailor takes to the water he's given. He learned to play its games. He loved sailing in the dark under all the bridges, lights glittering on the water. It feels like a betrayal to take this old sailor away from the river, but he is cold and will soon be tired. We'll need warmth and a restroom and a book to read and a nap. As we watch the river, I'm silently developing my strategy for navigating the steps ahead. A mental rehearsal. Each move takes planning, although we've done it all many times. How I'll turn the wheelchair and push it back up the ramp. Keys ready, reach to open the door. Angle the chair close to the car, flip the footrests out of the way, set the brake. Strike the sails, coil the lines. No, that's sailing. Remind him to turn and sit down on the passenger seat first, then help him bring his legs into the car. Lean over him to fasten the seatbelt. fold the chair, and heft it into the back. Drive the roads he no longer recognizes. Find a parking place with room to unload. Wrestle the chair out of the back. Park it beside the front door. Support his struggle back into the chair. Push it across the asphalt of the parking lot and through the double sliding doors and back to the room where he's cared for and doesn't know why he is there. Every step is complicated, but the two of us will manage. I take off the brake and turn the chair up the ramp. He looks at me and says, "I'm sorry." And the river moves on. I thank all of you for being here and for sharing this lovely event with me. And I thank the editors of About Place Journal for letting me be part of this. Next up is Laurel Wilkinson.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Robin. It's lovely to be here. I'm calling in from Duwamish land in the city of Seattle, and I am going to be reading my poem, which is called Washing Rice, and I'll get right into it. My fingertips swirl grains of rice, coax excess starch to cloud water, mingle with skin. Mildly waterlogged, rice swishes out liquid. I try to prevent slippage. Tipping the bowl, I dam the rim. Only a few grains escape the seal of my palm. Tap water sweeps them downward into whirlpool of drain through channels of subterranean pipelines, starch circuitously surfacing. I recall my grandmother's rice dispenser rising to height of 3-year-old chest. Behold cream and green Gohan greenery as grandma beholds her Gohan zone. I select a number carefully from tiny slot machine, wait impatiently as 1, 2, 3, or 4 cups spill, the resonance of a tipped rain stick showering my eardrums until the last plunks signal me to transport the grains to their ceramic conduit. Rinse and ritualize this offering placed daily by grandma before Gohan zone. She massages beads of her juzu as I massage beads of rice, chanting Nam Myo Renge Kyo, ignorantly imitating her graceful fingers. Lacing beads like a cat's cradle, I hum in solidarity, words connoting only a peculiar blend of incense, cigarette smoke, and Chanel No. 5. This blend I inhale every time I clutch her pillows, peer into her jewelry box, press my face to her towels, the only high I need to retrieve what is no longer her body spilling like grains of sand into a slowly graying river, current punctuated by roses. Long stems streak water clean, strip toxins, settle silt, so that every time I wash rice, my bowl is a paddy where my grandmother, hunched in muck, carries nieces and nephews on her back, knees bearing weight into and out of mud, the way my fingers massage in and out of rice. grinding arthritis into joints, stratifying starch and arsenic, leaving stray grains to linger on my nails, the way leeches linger on her ankles, suctioning their lips to her veins, strong blue channels that support nimble fingers as they knit happy coats, fold cranes, choreograph chopsticks, dig trowel in and out of damp dirt, pump fluids beside an oxygen tank. Deep sea pressure pressing her lungs like an iron, unable to smooth the wrinkles wrought by years of cigarettes, toxins seeping in and out of each breath as her long fingers clutch mine before memory swallows her into open ocean, trans-Pacific back to Patty's, rivers, mountainside, where her essence floods onsens, soaks into pores, emanates from the softening starches that steep my face in rice steam, measure breath to gentle murmurings of rice cooker. The remnants of this ritual I sustain. Thanks so much. And now I am pleased to introduce Margot Berdyshevsky.
Hi, I'm Margot Berdyshevsky. And I think Jacob is going to bring up an image for you, the image that is in the journal. And since the image is a bit mysterious, and people have asked me to explain it, which I don't think I can do, but it does go under the surfaces, like all metaphor. So what I want to do is to begin with a poem I've made that is as metaphoric as the image is. And then I'll try to speak about process a little bit. For Night Song of the River Spirit. Once I called her the darkness. Now I call her eclipse me, half a sky me, child me, nipples hot with midlife, nightlit me, where the dark of a pulsar shimmers like a baby burning, as though a soul were an egg, a breadfruit, a plum so full, so ripe, so ready to be injured by falling. But say I find faith. No, say a volcano's silver sword stabs my sleep. No, say guardian. Its charred descent, its white split-tailed birds diving. Say goddess of ash. Say ash of kiss. Say river, ebbing courage. Even when prayer, and what is that, has a star's clack of visible radiation. I lie with the only lovers left, stone, sky, river, light. I have married myself now, drowned while my own eclipse is a solarized star, crossed out by moon, dropped down between my woman's sway and burden. Here my hermit's candle and nipples flamed. Like all surfaces, I can fracture, say threat, say blessings. Like all depths, I can rise all night. I want to say thank you to someone. Someone, please. I say star. I say river. I say eclipse in the dark all night. But how to write poetry or make any art in wartime, fire time, flood time, how to go under the surfaces. My once upon island home, one of its entire towns, burned to ashes and death this last summer. How to clean the ash out of the heart quickly enough to mix it with images and the scent of an ending or another terrible beginning, too near and too distant to admit my own fear. That's where my works come from in these times. presences that are mysterious, frightening, and beauty-filled both, if I can include them. And so they led me to make my photo montage, Night Song of the River Spirit, a gathering and then a blending overlaying of my maybe haunting images. A photograph of underwater stones, a charcoal drawing in inks and thin charcoals and washes of a partly visible naked being, lover, friend, spirit, bleeding through one another. And it became Night Song of the River Spirit. What I call hybrid often allows me to go where simple images cannot, without layering, overlaying, including metaphor, as I would in poetry, and then letting a work speak for itself, because I'm a maker who doesn't like to explain her work. I know what I'm afraid of, or what challenges and mystifies me, and maybe you as well. And that's where we meet, in the empty space filling with our images, our fears, imaginings, deaths, and lives. May we make it through these days with a little grace and a recognition that, as another poet, Liesl Müller, wrote in her poem, The Blind Leading the Blind, something with wings went crazy against my chest once. There are two of us here. Touch me. Thank you. And it's my privilege to introduce our last reader, Leonora Simonovas.
Thank you. That was lovely. It's been great to just sit and bask in all these words and art and music. It's beautiful. Thank you to the editors too for choosing our work. And I am zooming in from Kumeyaay Land in Southern California and San Diego. I'm going to read a couple of poems, and I'll start with this little weird poem called Conception. She plucks off the feathers, shoves them in her mouth, an overwhelming pleasure, a pliable aftertaste. She didn't know they would quiver and flare, is surprised by their liveliness. The sight of the creature they came from gives her pause. Should she find another medium next time? Then again, it's not the first time she sought kinship in one exquisite bite. What will grow inside of her this time? What, if anything, will ask to be named? And the second poem I'm going to read is the one in the journal. And this poem started about 7 years ago in a workshop. Right around the time I found out about my heritage. My family always privileged the Spanish side and the Spanish heritage, but I felt like that never applied to me because I didn't look like that side of the family. So my mother finally told me my great-grandmother was Native South American, and then a lot of things started to make sense to me. But because no one talks about it, there's not much I can find out. And it's very difficult because I'm an exile. I don't get to visit my homeland. So writing is my way of connecting with that heritage, but also of honoring my ancestors. So this is After They Come, We Go to the Water. They stabbed the earth with no swimming signs, hunted the caimanes to extinction, made boots for themselves, belts to whip our children. We've been renamed, lost in the web of a foreign alphabet. Baptism leaves us thirsty and wanting. They told us the Spanish for river is peligro, while casting nets and peeling rocks from their sleep, impervious to the scream of the currents, their ears attuned to the one-face God. Oxbow, reshaped, separated from the mother, we call on the Churun, found our way back to be reborn among silt and sediment into runnel and brook, stream and arroyo. Like the caimanes, we watch and wait, tracking each of their movements, listening for the smallest vibration. They think we're afraid. In our language, fear is synonymous with freedom. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here together and being in this space to think and feel and listen. I know my heart is so full, and I'm so honored to have been here with all of you. And thank you to everyone also who is joining us on YouTube for being here in this space. We can't see your face, but we feel you. We feel you here, being in community with us. So I'm just so grateful to share this space with all of you. Thank you again. Do any of the other editors want to say anything before we close?
I'm in awe, and I love Irene. I'm going to steal your your chat message that in love with this issue all over again. Yes, over and over again. Thank you all.
Such an incredible honor. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you so much to everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your evening or morning, wherever
Morning.
All right, well, take care. Thank you. I'll be carrying
Thank you to all.
three
Thank
words of
you.
art.